Hello, listener. Welcome to the latest edition of the Euro Football Verdicts podcast. In today's edition, we're going to discuss what happened this weekend in the main Southern European leagues. Porto losing, Barcelona drawing, and in Italy, Juventus didn't even play. Let's see what happened there. Then we're going to discuss what happened in the UEFA Champions League. The group draw is over and we have some interesting ones to discuss. Finally, we're going to talk all about the latest and greatest of the transfer market. Deadline day is today. What happened, the surprising moves and the trends that we can see in the football transfer market. This and much more in today's Euro Football Verdicts. Hello guys, welcome to a new edition of the Euro Football Verdicts. What a great edition ahead. Today we have transfer deadline day and a lot to discuss of what happened over the weekend. Also Champions League, it's going to be a big one. And for that we need the help of Steph. How's it going, Steph?
I'm all right, man. How about you?
Very well, very well. Looking forward for today. And also Marco is joining us, of course. How's it going, Marco?
Hello, everybody. Very excited for the deadline today. So looking forward.
Yeah, it's a big one. It's a big one. So I'd say without further ado, let's first take a step back and look at what happened in the weekend that just passed in the main European leagues of the South. So guys, let's discuss what happened this weekend. It was a very interesting one. Especially across the Southern leagues. Marco, what do you have to tell us? What happened in Spain?
Yeah, so quite an interesting weekend in Spain, where Real Madrid calls and Barcelona, I would say, don't answer. So we had Zidane's team winning 2-0 against Levante and taking by themselves the lead of the La Liga. We know as in Spain, as well as in many other leagues in Europe, not all the games have been played so far. So there's a lot of teams missing either 1 or 2 games. So it's quite hard. But, you know, being 4 weeks in, being first in the league is always a good sign for Real Madrid. Definitely Junior, Vinicius and Benzema being the best players of the Real Madrid side. With the goals but generally speaking with the good plays from both of them. These 3 points are quite important for Merengues also because, as mentioned, the 1-1 between the Blaugrana and Sevilla helped them to get the lead. We had Luke de Jong and Coutinho scoring the 2 goals with the Dutch striker being again being on form after the summer spell in the Europa League. And now basically both teams going to 7 points. I think that was a game that many people were looking at. Sevilla being seen as definitely among the top 4. Barcelona being seen by many, if not the main competitor, definitely and again one of the top 3 teams in the league. So what are your thoughts, maybe, Alex, on this game?
Well, I think you see that Real Madrid is Mr. Consistency in that case. And we said when we did a preview of this league that it was going to be a league mainly driven by Real Madrid being Real Madrid, delivering without great artistic note, as we say in Portugal, but delivering nonetheless, whilst Barcelona would have its problems. So it would be more a loss of Barcelona this campaign than actually a deserved win by Real Madrid. And I think it's more or less proving that Real Madrid is the 1-2-0 team that wins, not beautifully, but wins, whilst Barcelona is a bit behind. I'd be more interested in knowing from your side, what do you think about Atletico? I mean, they're really having... They're really having problems, right?
Touching on the other quite important game of this week, right? So Atletico Madrid versus Villarreal, 0-0 at home. Quite an uneventful game, score side, I would say. Both teams were expecting, many people were expecting a lot from both teams, but so far none of the 2 really managed to go ahead. I believe that right now Atletico is at 5 points after a couple of 3-4 games. So not the best start for Atletico for sure. It kind of confirms what we were saying, right? This season really depends if the key player, that young player that Atletico brought in last year, finally turn in being a star of the team, or whether they keep on being, I don't want to say mediocre, but definitely not outstanding. So we quite a boring game, I would say, and I don't know, I don't have good feelings for Atletico. Team that I have good feelings though for, it's definitely Real Sociedad. You know that David Silva is one of my personal favorite, and the trio that the Real Sociedad managed to put out with Oyarzabal, Merino, and Porto, destroying Getafe was quite important. And I think they might be a surprise of this season, to be honest, even more compared to what we anticipated in the beginning. Stefano, any thoughts about that?
Well, my first thought is that I want to give you a hug because of the sadness in your voice when you said that David Silva is one of your favorite players.
Yeah.
We know Marco, as a Lazio fan, was very, very disappointed in that. But jokes aside, I'm also very curious in seeing Real Sociedad season. But I don't entirely agree on Atletico. I think they did have a slow start, of course. We all can see it. But I think it's just a matter of catching their personal chemistry. And so I still see them having a very good season ahead.
Very interesting, guys. Very interesting. So now let me take you across the border to Portugal with a brief summary of what happened this weekend. It was an uneventful weekend for most teams except one. Porto had a couple of problems, but let's get to it later. First, you had Benfica winning 3-2 at home against Farense, which they showed a bit of issues in holding a result, but eventually they delivered. Sporting played against the other team from the Algarve, visiting Portimonense, with a win of 2-0, which really recovering from the midweek heartbreak in the Europa League that saw the Lions unfortunately step out of the Europa League. You can hear it in my voice. I'm very happy about that situation. But yeah, they won very convincing against Portimonense, especially the first half with a lot of pressure. And honestly, listeners, if there is anything you have to do now, is just to go Google the goal of Nuno Mendes, because you need to watch it. The left back, the 18-year-old left back, dribbling past 4 players and then scoring with the right foot. Whoa, just beautiful. Magical.
To be honest, amazing. It really felt like, I don't know, the only player I can think of in the past years that had that kind of spell as a left back is probably Marcelo. If we change wing, Dani Alves. And I know that we're going to very big names, but that goal is something magical.
Yeah. Oh, it's the guy, honestly, and that's the whole conclusion in Portugal. He won't be in Sporting's team next year, for sure. He might still not go out during the winter month, but in the summer he's gone. He has a release clause of 45 million, and you already know 30 million are easy we would get 30 million for him now. So imagine in a couple of months you're getting the 45 easy. So I'm not expecting him to be there for much longer. Then you also, as mentioned, had the Porto with troubles at home, losing 3-2 against Marítimo. So that one was a complicated one. Teles, which we will discuss later for sure, missing a penalty. It was a clear defending number one art of Marítimo, but their goalkeeper had, he could be valued at 20 million after that game. If you only saw that game, everyone would buy him. He would take the place of Donnarumma at Milan for sure. The guy had an amazing game, and Marítimo won 3-2. Even one of the goals scored by Nanu, he then in the following day is now being bought by Porto. So that's how impressive the right back was. So yeah, a lot of changes at Porto, and it's opening up the league, let's say. And then just an FYI for Steph, Revolves drew 1-1 away to Famalicão.
But talking about the Portuguese league, I have a question, Alex.
Tell
Benfica
me.
managed to win 3-2 against Farense. But what shocks me is not just the close result with the last of the league, but the fact that Farense actually had more shots, both on target and total shots, than Benfica. What does that mean for the league?
Well, I'll give you an example. In Portimonense, the same against Sporting. Portimonense and both Farense, those two teams from the south, they really go in these games with open spirit. So they go really attacking. They open themselves up in the back, but they create a lot of issues for the opponents. And the big teams in Portugal are not used to having the smaller teams, having the balls to go up against them. So that's the interesting one. The other one, I would answer you with the comments of the Benfica manager after the game. It just shows us, so basically they sold Ruben Diaz last week. It just shows us that we need 2 center backs urgently. So that's basically his way of saying, yeah, we won, but guys, I need players. So Portugal has another advantage, which is because it's a holiday today, so they'll have one more day to hire players, which I do not expect Benfica to bring any more players in, but Porto will have a very, very big day tomorrow, for sure, because they're going to get at least 3 players, 3-4 players in the last 24 hours. So yeah, that's about it from the Portuguese league. Ste, what do you have to say about the weekend in Italy?
Let's move to Serie A then. So the starting match was Fiorentina against Sampdoria, 1-1 by Sampdoria. A very, very convincing match by Ranieri's team. Then we had Sassuolo winning 4-1 against Crotone. Man, Ciccio Caputo really seems to be on fire this year, like even more than last year. Then we had Udinese against Roma, 1-1 by Roma, with Pedro's first goal with his new team. Then we had another victim, a sacrificial victim for Atalanta, because this year like Atalanta is stomping over everybody, and this time it was Cagliari. Atalanta won 5-2 against Cagliari, and they even had the first goal by their new attacker, which is Lammers, and the first seasonal goal by Duvan Zapata, the first of many, as we know they will be. Then in a not too exciting match, we had Parma winning 1-0 against Verona. It's Parma's first victory of this year. Benevento's second victory against Bologna. This was a very surprising one because everybody was expecting Benevento to struggle this year, but so far Filippo Inzaghi's team won 2 out of 3. So very good start for it. Then we had one of those rough matches, the highlight of the weekend, which was Lazio against Inter, and it was a draw, 1-1. And there was a draw not just in the score, but also in terms of red cards, because first Ciro Immobile from Lazio and then Stefano Sensi got a red card, so it was one of those very passionate matches.
Well, passionate games. I would rather say that the referee wanted to write his name in a history book, because he came up with both red cards out of nowhere.
Yeah, you didn't like the decisions after these soft pushes, I guess.
Oh, there was nothing. I mean, Immobile, there was a touch. Should have been a red card? In my opinion, no. Definitely, at the very least, no, without going to VAR, which he didn't. It didn't feel like a red card, and if you look at the replay, I can see why he came up with the red card. The Sensi red card, there was literally nothing. And again, the referee was by far the worst in the game. He was just giving, I think he gave something like 8-9 yellow cards in a game, which was not too aggressive. So completely lost the game from his end. Very bad performance from the ref.
Yeah, I feel indeed that the decision to give Sensi a red card might have been some effort to compensate for a decision to give it to Immobile, of which he was not too sure about it. So I agree with you on this point, Marco. Then we had AC Milan winning 3-0 against Spezia with 2 goals by Rafael Leao. So Milan winning even after their struggle to say the least against Rio Ave in the last Europa League qualifier. And by the way, guys, every football fan in the world has to see those penalties because they are by far the weirdest penalties I have ever witnessed in my whole life. 24 penalties with so many back and forth and weird things happening, and it's definitely a must-watch. I really can't overestimate how much those penalties should be seen. And then we have finally the biggest controversy at this moment in Italy, because last week we had the Luis Suarez Italian exam affair, but this week we have the Juventus against Napoli affair.
There's always something new in Italy. There's always something new.
Something going on, always. We are never bored. And so what happened is that 2 days before the match, I think it's just 1 or 2 players from Napoli tested positive to COVID-19. And the regional health authority issued an order according to which Napoli's players were not allowed to go out of their home isolation, and so they were not allowed to play against Juventus. But the order from the regional authority was actually against the national guidelines, meaning that Napoli could not go to Torino to play against Juventus because of the order, but according to national guidelines, they should have had. And so now the question is whether Napoli is going to be disqualified and so lose 3-0 as a forfeit against Juventus or not. And I imagine this will be very, very controversial in the upcoming days. And whatever decision the national authority will eventually take, it's going to be challenged. This is going to take us at least 2 weeks to get settled, I think, guys. And that's really messy. This is just messy.
Very interesting. So a lot that happened this weekend, and probably a lot more to happen next weekend. But now let's take a look at what happened actually during last week in the Champions League draw. So welcome back, guys, to the Euro Football Verdicts. Let's discuss what happened in the Champions League draw last Thursday. Very interesting draw, in my opinion, with two very, very even groups, in my opinion. Not like death groups, but even at least. But let's go in alphabetical order, and I'd like your feedback on each of the groups. You know, who's passing, who's going to Europa League, and who's left stranded. So Group A, we have Bayern Munich, Atletico Madrid, Lokomotiv Moscow, and Red Bull Salzburg. So short 60 to 80 kilometer drive for Bayern Munich to go to Salzburg, but Atletico Madrid, always a hard player. And then the Lokomotiv Moscow, which is not the usual team to see in the group stages. So what is your opinion, Stay, on this one?
I think that for sure Bayern Munich, the champion of last year, is going to take the lead in this group. I really don't see it going otherwise. Then after, as I said before, I'm still confident about Atletico Madrid's possibility to find some chemistry between its new players. And I am also very confident in Simeone's skills. And so I would think that Atletico will take the second place. Maybe it's going to be challenged by Salzburg, which is a very good team in my opinion. But I think that Salzburg will score third and so go to Europa League eventually.
Yeah, I mean, Salzburg has everyone's favorite Zambian player, Patson Daka, which is a very interesting player, basically the successor of Erling Braut Haaland. Marco, is there any hope for the Salzburg boys?
I think there is, to be honest. I really like the team, quite young, quite energetic. It's really between Atletico and them to play. You have on one hand the giant, and on the other the underdog with probably a little bit more hunger to win the games. So it's going to be quite an even game. I think it's going to be definitely Bayern to 12 points at the very least. Lokomotiv and Moscow struggling, and the other two really playing it with I expect 1-2 points difference or more.
Very good, very good. So we agree on this in terms of Bayern and Atletico going through. We'll have Salzburg going to Europa League because they're far better than Moscow, in this case, and against Lokomotiv. Let's turn our attention to Group B. Now, Group B has an interesting, it's still not for me a top group, but has a really interesting group. So you'll have Real Madrid and Inter playing against Shakhtar Donetsk, still based out of Kiev and Kharkiv, and also Borussia Mönchengladbach. Guys, what is your opinion on this one? It's quite interesting, no?
Yeah, to be honest, I think it's one of the top 3 groups in terms of interests for me. The main reason is I can see any of these teams win against any of the others. Real Madrid is not the Real Madrid they used to be a couple of years ago. They basically did little to no transfer market. They have a huge gap in the right back or left back if you want to move one of the players, but there is definitely a gap in the wing backs. Shakhtar Donetsk is always a team that goes far in Europe, no matter whether it's in Champions League or Europa League. It's a long history. A lot of Brazilians, of course, can always be a challenge. And Inter, probably this is the year that they have to deliver. Conte managed to get the president to buy many old and experienced players because they want to win the league or go far in Europe, one of the two. And then you have Borussia Mönchengladbach, a German team rather, I would say. And just a team, again, a lot of young players, a lot of willingness, not that much experience in Euro in the past years outside from Europa League. So it's going to be quite interesting, but I can see definitely them winning against Shakhtar, winning against Inter, and even putting a threat against Real Madrid at home, for instance. So I see it quite even, to be honest.
So, Ste, who's going to go through? Come on, tell me that.
Well, I must say that I see 2 favorite teams, which would be, in my opinion, Real Madrid and Inter. But I also agree with Marco's point that especially Shakhtar is always intriguing, right? Because they are always in Champions League. They have such experience with Europe, and so they could try and make it. Still, I see Real and Inter as favorites, but we'll see.
Yeah, I think Shakhtar is gonna give Inter a hard time because also they're gonna be focused on the Serie A, so it's gonna be a hard time. Real Madrid should go through without issue. Gladbach has the team is too short. Basically, they brought one player in. I mean, it's still not enough to play Champions League and Bundesliga all at the same time, I think. So I agree with you guys. Let's go to Group C, which is, to be honest, one of the least interesting groups in my opinion. We'll have Manchester City, clear out favorite. Then your Olympique Marseille, FC Porto as the only Portuguese representative, and Olympiacos Piraeus. So in this case, we think we all agree City by far favorite. If almost to say if they don't win all 6 games, it's going to be a bit sad.
Yeah, right? I think it's really autopilot. It's autopilot for City here.
Right. And then who's finishing second?
I must go with history, and I'm gonna vote Porto. I know it's probably not the best Porto, but I think in Champions League experience means a lot. Definitely not Olympiacos. If Marseille, again, another team that has course experience in Europe last year, they did very well. But I think it was a little bit like Roma a couple of years ago. One of those spells where luck has a strong component, and it's just gonna be hard to confirm the level, I think. Even harder than getting to where they got at the first year.
Yeah,
I agree. Sorry, go on, Alex.
I agree with Marco in the idea. I think Porto's experience might make up for their changes that are now occurring. And now Marseille today is losing 2 players. So the right back, in a surprising twist of events, 28-year-old Sarr is going for 10 million euros to Bayern Munich. So we don't know what's happening in Bavaria, but something is happening for sure. And Olympiacos is reinforcing themselves, but I still think Porto is a clear favorite because Porto doesn't matter how, they always pass the group stage. They either don't reach it or they pass. They never stay and fall to Europa League.
Yeah, maybe you're right, guys, but maybe you're not considering a very important factor, which is the Yuto Nagatomo factor. Yuto Nagatomo maybe will bring Olympique Marseille to victory. But, I think Olympique Marseille is at least going to be third, if not second, eventually. And Nagatomo apart, they also have Payet, Thauvin, they have a good team. And while it is true that somehow Porto always makes it, maybe this time it could be more challenging for them.
And now let's go to Group D, which I have to be honest, it's my favorite group. It's a very interesting one, a very offensive one. Liverpool, Atalanta, Ajax, and FC Midtjylland, which are the newcomers. So this group is very famous because they had three of their teams, FC Midtjylland, Ajax, and Liverpool, have the same throw-in coach. It's a weird thing now in football. And those three teams actually have them. It's a Danish guy. So Marco, what are your feelings on this one? Is Italy's Proud Boys, are they going to be able to survive this one?
From what I've seen in Italy, yes, and they're going to go through. It's Atalanta is just an absurd team. They feel like they are getting some drugs or some extra kind of protein or something that let them muscles just go forever and ever and ever. It's absurd how much they run. They have demolished every single team in the league so far. They don't seem willing to stop. And even the new guys coming in are performing very well. I think I struggle to see Atalanta falling out of this group. Ajax is good. They bought a couple of players, also quite an important one today. We're going to talk about this later, but I don't know. I think that the Ajax semifinal is long gone. From the team, there's, I believe, only 2 players left. So there's not much left of the team. What Ajax is doing right now, it's getting young players, getting them famous, selling them, and investing in the facilities to then recreate in a couple of years' time the great Ajax again. But it's not a great Ajax yet.
Which I find really interesting. They have the biggest problem in the world so far. Their account says they have 200 million in the bank and they don't know what to do with them. So that's an interesting problem to have in terms of in current climate. So instead, there is really no possibility for Ajax, so clear one for Liverpool and Atalanta?
I'm not sure. With those teams such as Atalanta, the question is always whether they can keep up at this pace for the whole year, or even for part of the year, and which at the moment it seems very likely that they will, because like in Serie A they're just stomping over everybody. They seem to be invincible, unstoppable, and but maybe it can always happen that at some point the players lose the pace, the rhythm, or just something breaks in a team. But if it stays like this, then there's no chance for any other team in the group. Like not even for Liverpool. I think that Atalanta, if it keeps up like this, they can even be first in the group and defeat Liverpool. But nevertheless, I still expect Atalanta-Liverpool to be like. I'm going to be disappointed if it doesn't end up like 5-5 or 3-3 or something like that. So yeah, I don't think that Ajax can make it this time. As Marco said, they are not the same team that we all rooted for a couple of years ago. And I think that Atalanta and Liverpool will pass it.
Very well, very well. And now let's turn our attentions to Group E, in which we will have Chelsea, Stade Rennes, Sevilla, and Krasnodar. So guys, how is it looking here? Is Sevilla going to do on purpose to finish third or not? This is a big question mark.
That's a good question. I don't know. I just think this is the least exciting group for me by all of them. 2 clear favorites, Sevilla, Chelsea. I think the other 2 teams don't have much to tell. Again, as you mentioned, the only thing that we might consider is the fact that Sevilla wants to win once again the Sevilla League. Europa League, as someone calls it these days. But that's the only reason why I think Sevilla won't finish second. The team is way too strong than the other 2.
Can you imagine like last game of the group and they know they need to lose by 2 goals and you just see them pounding own goals like crazy in the last 5 minutes? I can totally foresee Sevilla doing that.
Yeah, it's not an unlikely scenario, right? They do it every year and then they just win Europa League.
Oh man. So yeah, let's agree that Chelsea and Sevilla are going to go through. I think Stade Rennes has a very interesting team. They brought some players now in. They lost their goalkeeper, funnily enough, to Chelsea, but they're proving to be a quite healthy side, and they have a very strong financial backer. So I think they're gonna finish third. So another boring group. Let's go to Group F and discuss the future of Lazio, Marco.
I think this is the most exciting, boring group that Champions League ever had. And what I mean by it is 4 teams. None of them, I think, it's way above the others. All of them can win a game. Of course, Club Brugge is a little bit behind the other 3. Zenit is not the Zenit that we used to have, but to be honest, neither Dortmund is the Dortmund that was really challenging or winning Bundesliga as it was when Klopp was there, or a couple of years back. Either way, Lazio didn't do a great transfer market, so I think Dortmund first, Zenit or Lazio second, but quite even. But I wouldn't be surprised if Club Brugge just manages to, win a couple of 1-0 at home and draw away and scraping it. I think there's a lot that can happen in this group. Wouldn't be surprised if 3 teams end up at 6 points, and then it's going to be goal difference to decide who's going to go through.
Yeah, I think it could very well be the most balanced group in the whole Champions League, because I think that Club Brugge is starting from behind from the other 3. But between Zenit, Dortmund, and Lazio, I really can't choose my 2. It's very difficult. Maybe Dortmund just for the experience going first, but I'm not even sure about that. And between Lazio and Zenit, everything could happen, in my opinion. So it is very balanced, right?
And Russian teams are always tough, because you go to Russia in November, December, and those are hard games. Like it's minus degrees, while in Europe you still have 10, 15 degrees somewhere, right?
Yeah.
So that doesn't help.
Yeah, it's like when you try to invade Russia, you always end up dying in the cold.
Very well, guys. So fun group in F apparently. Let's take you then to the Group G, which, to be honest, is the most absurd in terms of division between 2 sets of teams. You have the Galactico derby between Messi and Ronaldo. Definitely, it's going to be a big one. Then you have Dinamo Kiev, who's probably going to be there, just for the finishing third, basically. And then Ferencváros starting, the Champions League.
Juventus.
Yeah, well, let's see how much Juventus there can be. It would be surprising if they get out of this group with 1 point.
Yeah, must be. No, but that shows how different are the leagues in Europe, right? I think Ferencváros won the league in Hungary 10 times in a row. But there's so much difference between any league in Europe and the small countries like Hungary.
Yeah. On paper, this group is already closed. Like there seems to be no space at all for surprises, or even, I must say, excitement. Besides, of course, the Juventus-Barcelona match, which is always very cool to see.
Who's gonna finish?
But
first, though?
Isn't it a crime if we're gonna have Messi, Ronaldo without fans?
That's a good point. It's so sad to think about it.
Yeah, definitely. But who's going to finish first? It's a good question. My money's on Juventus. I don't know. Barcelona just doesn't motivate me this year.
I'm going to go for Barcelona on the other hand. Pirlo, no experience in Champions League. They currently have like 6 players that play in the same right wing position. And no one really, and they just bought a new one. We're going to discuss in a while. No one really understands what they're going to do with all those players. I think there's something that doesn't fit well. The sporting director is already promised to Roma for next year. They decided to keep it this year. I don't know. Something is off for Juventus. I don't think they're gonna have a great spell for the last Ronaldo year at Juventus.
Yeah.
I think I will go for Juventus instead, and not because of the team, but just because of Ronaldo. Because Ronaldo is still trying to win his first Champions League after Real Madrid with a different team, and that's very strong and powerful motivation. Whereas Messi, we know that is not motivated at all, and so maybe their two best players could make a difference in this way. So I think that Juventus will get the first place.
Very well, very well. And now let's talk about Group H, which, to be honest, I think it's going to be my second favorite group in terms of how this can plan out. Obviously, you have Başakşehir, which is unfortunate to be in this group. But between Man United, PSG, and Rasenballsport Leipzig, before we get sued, it's going to be an interesting one, right? I think, honestly, between all those three, they can all finish first and second.
Yeah, I think that this time I'm gonna maybe surprise you by saying that I don't think that Manchester United will make it through the elimination stage, because I see Paris Saint-Germain going first and then Leipzig second. Leipzig has been growing so steadily and so fast in the last few years, and this year I see them performing even better than last year. So I'm not sure that United can keep it up this time.
Well, definitely not if they play as they played the last game.
Yeah.
Losing 3-0, but it's quite a, I must agree, quite a hard group to understand how it's gonna end. It's definitely Paris Saint-Germain first, but then I must say I expect Leipzig to come second. I really think that's gonna be a Manchester United Champions League, Europa League, sorry, final.
Very well. Very interesting thoughts. Well, let's keep an eye on it, and I'm sure we're going to discuss this UEFA Champions League very often in this program. So thank you on the insights on this one. And now let's take a final dip into the transfer market pool. So welcome back to our final section of today's episode. Transfer market is closing upon us. So across Europe, they're going to close today, Monday, some at 6 p.m., others at midnight. The only exception is Portugal. Due to a holiday, it's going to close tomorrow at midnight. Couple of key business dealings to look over. Let's start with Portugal in that case. We have Alex Telles officially at Man United. Marco, what's the insight here? What is your opinion on this one? So we're talking about 15 million euros plus 5 add-ons.
I think one of the best price quality deals that any team in Europe could have done for a wingback. 20 million for Telles is nothing. Could easily be twice as much. 35 million probably would have been the fair price. But COVID happened, contract couldn't be renewed. They had to get rid of him, get money. Great deal for United. Nothing to add here. I think it's quite straightforward. I doubt there's an argument to go against this.
And another move that happened also from Porto is Danilo Pereira going to Paris Saint-Germain for 4 million immediately and then 16 million mandatory. So what can you tell us, guys, especially Mark, on this case? Is it also a good purchase?
I think it's a great purchase. That's what we have discussed last year also in this podcast, right? Paris Saint-Germain had a great big gap in the midfield. Getting someone with his experience that still has 3-4 years of a very good quality football in him, organizing the play, being a little bit more defensive, strong presence in the midfield is something that was really lacking in Paris Saint-Germain midfield, I think. Now you can have, on one hand, the quality of Verratti. On the other hand, you can have the attacking movement of Di Maria, while still having him to organize the play and providing some defensive support. I think it's a great addition. Then for the price also, I think it's a great deal. 29 years old, so that explains a bit, but it's a great deal for sure. But also there's a couple of other players that have moved recently that we probably want to touch upon. And many of those, I must say, not sure if you agree, they are coming back. So we have Bakayoko coming back to Serie A, moving to Napoli from Chelsea. We have Klaassen going back to Eredivisie, moving to Ajax. We have Douglas Costa, not just moving back to the same league, but actually to the same team, going to Bayern. And not to forget, we also have Kalinic coming back to Italy and going to Verona. It's about to be signed, the contract, everything is aligned. Kieger have already spoken, so it's just a matter of time. So many players coming back. What does it mean that people in these hard times are trying to find somewhat of a life buoy in a league they already played, trying to get back, to their feet, not risk a hard move? Or is it simply because, on the other hand, teams don't have enough money and want to go for a safe purchase?
Well, I honestly think it could be both. Like both the players trying to go back to where they succeeded, and maybe even with a small drop of nostalgia in it. But also, in these times, the market is strongly influenced by the current situation and the current emergency. So there are many economical considerations coming into play. For instance, Kalinic's case, which I find very interesting. We know Kalinic had a couple of very good seasons in Fiorentina, but then what happened after that? Because after that, he just went first to AC Milan. He was bought for a lot of money, actually, but it was one of the most disappointing seasons for him that year. Then he went to Atletico Madrid, and he just didn't play as much, but even when he played, it did not feel so good. So maybe it's one of those nostalgic coming back to a league in which you know that you performed well in the past. And that might also be the case for Bakayoko, because Bakayoko had a very good season at AC Milan, then went back to Chelsea and stopped playing again, or when he played, he stopped playing as good. So this is probably number one consideration coming into play in the mind of those players coming back to Serie A.
Very interesting. And we also had a couple of moves within Serie A, are probably quite interesting, which is, for instance, the Chiesa situation. So what's your opinion on that one, Marco?
Hard to say. I have the feeling there was a deal that was planned from, at the very least, already a year, and that didn't happen yet. And now the player was just relying on this pre-agreement that they had and really wanted to leave Fiorentina. I struggle to understand the technical side of the move. Juve just bought Kulusevski. Kulusevski has been performing really well in the first couple of games for Juventus. And they're basically a very similar player that plays on the right wing, that really loves to have the ball in the feet, and that struggles to just be a part of the team, where his contribution might be just a couple of crosses during a game. And the problem is, it's not that they just changed the whole wing, because they still have many players, and currently they're still playing with only one player on the right wing, because they're playing with a 3-5-2 or with a 4-4-2 really, and they still have the likes of Bernardeschi, Quadrado can play there. I struggle to understand. I think it's just gonna be, they're just getting someone because they promised to buy him rather than because they really need him at this moment.
Marco, I also see a tactical problem in this move, because at Fiorentina, which often plays with the 3-5-2 scheme, Chiesa used to play as a right winger, but he was very offensive, because often Ribéry went a little bit backwards, and so he alternated with Chiesa, and Chiesa was able to go more into the offensive side. But in Juventus,
almost a striker, wasn't he?
Almost a striker, yeah. But I don't think that can be the case in Juventus, because even if Pirlo Juventus keeps playing with the 3-5-2 scheme, still, if they play forward with Ronaldo and Dybala, or Ronaldo and Kulusevski, there's not so much room for Chiesa to go more forward and play as a striker as in Fiorentina. And conversely, he will have to play in a slightly more defensive way, which I don't think it is his specialty. So I think there might be some tactical troubles with this move.
And there's also Morata right up front. So the space both up front and on the wing is furthermore limited. The only solution I can see from a tactical point of view is really switching to a very offensive and long time not seen in Europe 3-4-3. where you can put maybe Chiesa on the left to ensure that he crosses rather than shoots, Kulusevski on the right, and then you have Ronaldo up front, with, of course, Morata being the substitute to Ronaldo, and having Bernardeschi substitute on the right, and possibly Dybala, Chiesa fighting it on the left. That's the only way I can see. But then again, it's a lot of players that are not really capable of defending up front. And then you're stuck with Cuadrado and Alexandro doing the full wing. Is it enough? I don't know. It's a big question mark.
Well, yeah, when question marks are of the hour, let's be honest, with the transfer deadline day and everything that is occurring. I think one interesting still to highlight is the right back situation. So we've seen a lot of changes currently in the switches on right back. And we even saw Mattia De Sciglio now moving from Juventus to Olympique Lyonnais. My question on this one was in terms of the surprises. So there was a player here who has a bright future ahead, Serginho Dest. Serginho Dest is the right back of Ajax. Is not the starting right back, that's Mazraoui, but the second one. And he was everyone's favorite player of this market. Everyone was up for him. You had especially Barcelona and Bayern Munich in a tug of war for him. In the end, Barcelona took him. Marco, what kind of player are we talking about? I mean, everyone fights about him, but he played last season for Ajax in the Eredivisie, just 20 games. So it's not even like he's playing all the time. I mean, is he the future right back of this world, and is he such an improvement on Nelson Semedo?
I think what we're seeing these days, it's a real struggle to buy top player. So the team that can afford are usually going very heavy on bets of players that are 18, 19 years old, that have already provided to be quite decent in the National League, and they have some experience. And we're not seeing just Serginho Dest this season, but we also have Diallo, that apparently is moving from Atalanta for 30 million to Manchester United, and that has played a single game in Serie A. Scored, nonetheless, but still a single game in Serie A. It's quite absurd, but I think that's the only way that these big teams can now afford to buy top player. We're seeing that there's an effort from Real Madrid, for instance, to buy very good players, but now it's 100 million upwards. Mbappe is probably gonna get to 200 million. So if I can take a bet on 3, 4, 18 years old, paying in each of them 20, 30 million, if I get the right bet, I have a top player, and if I don't, probably I can still sell them for 15 million a couple of years later. I think that's the way we should look at these players from now onwards, and it shouldn't be about do they have enough value, but how much money are gonna lose if it's wrong, and probably it's not that much, because that's what we're seeing in current football. You can always find a way with loans to regain your money, to basically split your cost among the years, and then not really be that impacted on your balance for a bad player purchase.
So basically, and for you, just more this question, is it basically the start of the levering of the football market? Because Bayern Munich, faced by this situation, I cannot buy my desired player, Serginho Dest, the 19-year-old. So they went and bought a player called Bouba Sarr from Olympique Marseille for 10 million. He's a 28-year-old. He's an okay player, but is this the proof that even Bayern Munich and those teams, they just don't have the money to compete and pay out 50, 60, 70 million every time they want a player?
I think so, yeah. I think we are witnessing something very atypical and unexpected until last year. Now, loans are the name of the game, because we are not seeing so many direct purchases anymore. They're just loans with either option to buy or obligation to buy. And even huge teams purchasing, when they do, those players which might very well be good, but seem just to be average and below the average of the team in which they're going. And so, yeah, I think that's it. I think even huge teams such as Bayern are not capable of spending that amount of money anymore in these days.
Yeah, we just see Eric Choupo-Moting, PSG's scored like 1 goal for them or 2 goals last season, and he's moving to Bayern. It's just absurd, no, Marco?
Yeah, it's I think agents now have a big power. He was for free, so has some experience. He can go in. Probably is quite happy not to be a starter, which not many players of his skill are. It's quite a weird market we're looking. It's really about just making money and ensuring you're not losing too much, rather than being a little bit more planned of what you really need. And possibly also Chiesa falls under the same spectrum, right? He's still quite cheap compared to the player he could be. In a couple of years, he could be valued 90 million. That's a profit of 30 million for Juventus. So that's probably also what they're seeing in the player, rather than necessarily a tactical need in this very moment in time.
It's truly a very, very weird market ahead across the board. You have moves that are surprising to say the least. So I think we'll have a very interesting season ahead, and let's see how the market closes. And we'll definitely have a breakdown next week, more thorough on everything that happened today. So let me start by thanking Steph for your input today.
Thanks, man. It's been great as always.
Cheers, and thank you, Marco, for everything.
Thank you very much. So I'm gonna close with a last notice from that just happened, that Lazio managed to bought Nasri, but again we bought the wrong one. So as we did with Lukaku back in the day, we just bought the cousin of Samir Nasri, Kais Nasri. So after the Jordan Lukaku spell, we have another top player, or almost, right? Well, we can still sell t-shirts, right?
If you can't get the player, get at least his brother.
This has to be a way to sell t-shirts to people not paying attention, right?
Yeah, precisely. Too bad that David Silva didn't have a brother. Otherwise, we would have bought him as well.
He has a brother. It's called Bernardo Silva, but I don't think you could buy him.
No, too good.
Very well.
Andre Silva, possibly.
Very, very well. And with that Silva and Lazio appointment, that's how we finish the show. Thanks for everything, guys. And thank you, listener, for being with us. Enjoyed the transfer deadline day. And I'll see you next week. Remember to follow us on Instagram and write us your questions to eurofootballverdicts@gmail.com. Bye-bye, guys.